With the knowledge of the potential fate of her children, Angie's desire to die disappeared. The Arnolds had to wait a year before they could meet their hero, but at least they were allowed to write to each other.
And I turned around and looked and I said, wow, that's me. I hope that when, after my death, that I get to be a guardian angel to some youngster.
Animals have an ability to communicate with each other in ways that we can't hear or see.
Sometimes as a teacher, you get so enthusiastic with them, with their ability to do some things that you forget to, oh, you're right, you know, let me slow down for a minute.
Hello, I'm Lee Majors. In man's quest to control the world around him, he's often bound by the strict laws of nature. But sometimes the rules are bent and even broken as impossible situations suddenly become real. Can such things occur? We'll find out in the next hour of Miracles. In a near-death experience, people have claimed a journey to the other side, where it is incredibly peaceful and serene. But not everyone who returns from the edge of death comes back with those feelings. There are some whose life after death encounters were full of darkness and torment. What they saw and lived to tell about was a glimpse of eternal damnation.
Richard, keep my wedding rings and tell Alex and Jacob how much I loved them, and that this is not their fault. I can't do this anymore. I love you. Please understand. I just can't do this anymore.
Suicide, the final act of those who feel life's problems are so overwhelming that the only way they can cope is by ceasing to cope entirely. Angie Fenimore was such a person. But during her suicide attempt, Angie discovered the turmoil she was facing in this life was nothing compared to that which awaited her in the afterlife.
Hell is a matter of suffering, and I was in hell long before I took my life. Where I went was just a manifestation of what I was already experiencing. I wanted so badly just to end my life and to be done, and what I found was that I took all that with me, and it was multiplied, just intensified beyond anything that we even have the power of understanding in this life. And so it was absolutely the worst thing I could do. There was no escape.
Angie was the product of a dysfunctional home. Her mother left early on, and Angie assumed the responsibility of taking care of her younger sister and her father, an alcoholic. The young girl carried out her new role as best she could, but the situation began to deteriorate, and eventually Angie became a victim of psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and was consumed with feelings of utter worthlessness. At 19, Angie attempted to neutralize her ongoing mental anguish by getting married and having children, but she soon realized that having a family of her own would not free her from her secret misery.
I had fought depression for years and feelings of self-loathing that went along with how I'd been raised, and I felt like I was a horrible mother. I felt like I was dooming my children to a horrible existence, and I felt like I was actually going to be doing my family a favor by leaving them.
Initially, Angie thought death would take her to a better place, an idea which had been confirmed by her stepmother.
She had gone up to the corner of the room and seen her body when she had suffered a car accident. She had talked about being embraced by love and warmth and peace and not wanting to return back to her body.
But such a tranquil transition would not be the case for Angie.
My experience was completely different than anything I'd ever heard about. I had a concept of hell, but this was nothing like what I was anticipating at all.
Traditionally, hell has been thought of as the final destination for unrepentant sinners and evildoers. Images of lost souls suffering an existence of eternal torment in a pit of fire are familiar. But Angie's experience of the netherworld was not one of physical suffering. Instead, she found hell to be a place of unrelenting emotional distress. Angie's journey into the abyss began one cold January morning when, after failing to end her life by slashing her wrist, she took an overdose of pills and laid down on a couch to die.
When I was dying, I could feel this tremendous energy encompass me, and I could feel my spirit and my body separating. And it was very powerful and far more real than anything I've experienced in this life.
As her spirit left her body, Angie became aware of images racing toward her.
What I saw was actually my very first memory, and that was of being born. And I saw my mother looking at me and cradling me, and then I went through every moment of my life just exactly as I had lived it, only I felt everybody's feelings. I felt it from everybody's perspective, and I had a completely renewed understanding of what my life had been like and what my parents had really been like and what they were trying to do. And I found it very interesting that my mother was such a significant part of my life. I'd forgotten most of my memories with her because she had left when I was 9. And most importantly, I think I understood that she loved me.
As Angie continued to look back on her life, she began to sense that she wasn't alone.
I could feel a presence with me. I could feel a person with me. I knew he was male, and I knew he was viewing my life with me.
Eventually, Angie's review of her life ended as it began, with her suicide.
I went all the way to the point where I was lying there on the couch, and at that point I was surrounded by darkness.
Angie then felt herself descending into another plane of existence, where she became aware of other disembodied spirits who had chosen the path of self-destruction.
They were all kind of mumbling to themselves, completely self-absorbed, caring nothing about anybody else there or about anything but themselves. What was going on was that these people were reliving this worst experience over and over and over again, reliving this agony that they were in, this turmoil, whatever it was that had caused each of them to take their lives.
Angie, as well, might have been doomed to this ironic existence for all eternity had she not been called upon.
I heard a voice, and it said, "Is this what you really want?" And I looked to see where the voice was coming from.
The words had come from above.
I could see a pinpoint of light that looked just like a little star, and it grew in intensity and came toward me very quickly.
But the light wasn't a star. It was a being who was made of light.
And as he approached, I realized that this was God. I didn't have to be told. It was like the universe reverberated his name. And then he said, "You can't take your life. It's not yours to take. And life is supposed to be hard. You have to pass through these things. All of us have done this." And I was filled, as he spoke to me, with understanding about the purpose of life and what we're doing here and how important it is to think about how you treat other people. And then I felt another presence standing next to him. And I realized it was the same being that had been next to me during my life review.
Though Angie could not see this second presence, she sensed an inexplicable connection with him.
I could feel this incredible love and peace and compassion coming from him, and pain as well. And I knew that this was for what I had done. And then I heard him say, and I still couldn't see him, but I heard him say, "Don't you understand? I've done this for you." And when he said those words, I understood that I was in the presence of the Savior of the world. And I could feel what he had done for me. I was taken into that experience, into when he suffered for me. And I caught that moment of his life and understood that this was a very real and literal thing that had happened. And then I was shown what would happen to my children if I were to take my life and remain dead. And my oldest son in particular was harmed so terribly by the grief and the pain that he would have to suffer through his life that he was rendered incapable of even completing his mission here successfully.
With the knowledge of the potential fate of her children, Angie's desire to die disappeared.
And it was at that point that I was ready to come back. I think I just needed to understand that my life is not my own, that what we're doing here is so important, and every life that we touch is important.
Angie's return to her body was instantaneous.
When I came back, I rushed very quickly through the darkness, and when I opened my eyes, I was lying on the couch, and I could feel all the pain that I'd experienced, the drugs that I had taken, and my husband was coming through the front door at the same time.
Looking back on the incident, Angie now realizes how she came to a place where she felt the need to kill herself.
I didn't get there because other people had done things to me as much as that I had chosen not to overcome the things that are intentionally given to us, problems, things that we need to overcome so that we can grow. I still have trials that I have to overcome, but the important thing is to find happiness and to actually make happiness.
Recently, Angie gave birth to her third child, David, and the happiness which his presence has brought to her is clear.
I've often wondered how come I was permitted to come back, and all I can really say about that is that I am filled with gratitude that I was. I don't know for sure. All I know is that I still had purpose here, and that I was important, especially to my children.
In her book, Beyond the Darkness, Angie chronicles her most amazing journey and details the information she was given about a scheme to land us all in hell.
One of the things that I was told is that there is a being of darkness, that he's very organized, and that he has concourses of dark angels that assist him, and their main purpose is to thwart the plan of God, to direct those of us who are here in mortality to do harmful things.
But because of Angie's harrowing experience, she knows she can avoid the plans of the Prince of Darkness by living her life in the light. And by doing so, her life has improved immeasurably.
Yeah, life is great, and being in the light is wonderful.
Miracles in life are not necessarily restricted to divine intervention. In many cases, one human's response to another is all you need to make a miracle. In our next story, one man's generosity not only saved a life, but also proved that nothing in life is impossible. We were invited to a party, but this wasn't just an ordinary festivity, rather the celebration of life. Kelsey Arnold is a 7-year-old girl who has braved more in her young life than most of us have experienced in a lifetime.
On March 29th of 1993, she was diagnosed with leukemia.
They told us that the only hope she had was to have a bone marrow transplant.
Finding a possible bone marrow match within the immediate family circle is the ultimate goal.
We weren't fortunate enough to have a match. There's 6 HLA types. Kelsey's 3 of mine and 3 of my wife's, and my son didn't match either.
The only other solution was to harvest and transplant some of Kelsey's own bone marrow. But a year and 3 months later, Kelsey relapsed. A devastating experience for her and her family.
A bone marrow transplant is often a last resort for many patients. They've tried other types of treatments, other types of therapies, and this is their last chance of finding a cure. For many patients, if they don't receive a transplant, they will die.
We knew we had to get another transplant, and this time it couldn't be done the same way. We had to find a donor. So they went to the National Donor Pool, and on Christmas Eve last year, they called us and said they'd found a match.
Kelsey's transplant was a tremendous success, and her second chance of life was due to a complete stranger.
The donor and recipient do not know each other's names or where they live or what they're about until 1 year after the transplant.
Sometimes a patient will need a second transplant. The year allows for the anonymity of the donor. They can make a decision whether they want to donate again in private.
The Arnolds had to wait a year before they could meet their hero, but at least they were allowed to write to each other.
The very first time I wrote to him was the day she received his marrow. I didn't know how to start the letter. Because I didn't know his name, I didn't know him. I addressed it Dear Precious Angel, and we've called him Precious Angel ever since. And from him receiving that first card, he nicknamed her Little Angel, and today the angels met.
And now, without further ado, I'd like you to meet Ed and Karen Celeste.
It was after hearing a heartbreaking story of a leukemia sufferer and how difficult it is to get a matching donor that Ed Celeste decided to enter the donor program. It takes a special human being to come forward, to be tested, to undergo counseling, and have a medical exam history taken, and to say yes.
I consider finding a donor a miracle in itself. Just the statistics and the odds are so far against you to find somebody who has that close of a match.
For all of us to give a little bit, we can make those miracles happen. You know, without him, Kelsey wouldn't be here. So she's a miracle. It's a miracle.
For Ed and his wife Karen, meeting Kelsey was all the more special because they don't have children of their own.
We're getting a little lost for words. It's a bit overwhelming. This is the first we met. We've been communicating anonymously by letters.
Kelsey's sudden fondness for Chinese food led to some strange speculation.
She has some of my marrow and some of my blood now. I guess she has some of my likes and dislikes.
I've done this for 4 years, and this is the first time I've ever seen the donor and the recipient, and I'll tell you, it just puts everything in perspective. I'm glad that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle.
Miracles like these are only possible with foundations like the National Marrow Program and the dedication of people like Dr. Mitchell Cairo and his devoted medical team. The road to recovery is still long for Kelsey, but now at least she's able to go home and do the things ordinary kids do.
I like to play with my dog at home.
Before Kelsey's relapse, she was on her school swimming team, and she broke the record for her age group.
When I relapsed and came back into the hospital, somebody broke my record, and my mom said to me one day, Kelsey's coming back to break the record back.
And the man who's made all this possible stands as a brave man today.
Words can't express it. He has given my child another chance at life. He's given us another year to make memories, to experience everyday experiences that, a normal family or a normal child.
He's truly another gift from God besides my daughter.
Most people believe that a human being is more than just a physical body. The acceptance of a spiritual life force is common. But do the body and the spirit always function together? Let's take a look.
It was me walking towards my family and saying, "What are you looking at? What's the matter? Why are you crying?" And I turned around and looked and I said, "Wow, that's me. Wow." It looked pitiful to me. It looked saddening. It looked bad.
In 1979, actor Erik Estrada was living the Hollywood dream, a dream which began shortly after he was cast in Chips, a television series about the adventures of the California Highway Patrol. But it was because of this very dream that in an instant, Erik's world became a living nightmare. It began with the filming of a routine action scene.
It was a shot where me and Larry Wilcox, who was my partner on the show, and we're running out of a building, we jump on the bikes, and we're chasing a car.
But then something went terribly wrong. And instead of being seated on top of his motorcycle, Erik suddenly found the massive bike on top of him.
The first one to my side was Larry Wilcox.
It was obviously pretty serious, but I didn't know. And having been in the Marine Corps and Vietnam and all that stuff, I was pretty used to that kind of situation.
And he kept me from going into shock because he kept me in the present. And he was quite helpful because at that time, my lungs were punctured. And I had a big gash, but there was no blood coming out of my body. It was all internal bleeding, and it was filling up my lungs. So I had to really suck air on my own, and then the pain to boot.
And then the ambulance came, and I rode with him in the ambulance to the hospital. And then it got really serious. I'll never forget it. I could see in his eyes death. And I've seen it, you know, I know what it looks like. There's a fear in their eyes that's beyond normal fear. It's almost like the spirit's leaving the body.
Though the finality of death loomed over him, Erik's will to live kept him conscious while the doctors raced to save his life.
They lay me down on a slab. They start cutting the clothes away, the boots, the uniform off me.
I recall the priest coming in and giving him his last rites. They had anticipated that he had ruptured his aorta in his heart, so, you know, it could be in a matter of seconds. And they had to do either open heart surgery immediately or he would be dead. But then some miracle happened. He didn't have to have open heart surgery.
But Erik's other conditions, including collapsed lungs, numerous broken ribs, and several unspecified internal injuries, required that he be transferred to a different hospital.
So then I was helicoptered from there to UCLA by the Sheriff's Department, and it was in the intensive care unit at UCLA where I had an out-of-body experience.
The term out-of-body experience has become quite popular lately, but it's not a new phenomenon. One of the earliest uses of the expression dates back to the days of the Bible, when the Apostle Paul wrote, "And I knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell. God knoweth." The belief in a soul or a spirit existing within the confines of our physical bodies is common in cultures throughout the world. But less common is the notion that this aspect of our being is in fact a conscious entity which is able to wholly separate itself from the physical body and venture out on its own. In Burma, the withdrawal of this life force is likened to that of a butterfly leaving a cocoon. The Azandi tribe in Africa believe the separation of body and soul occurs every single night as one sleeps. It has been reported that the separation could be 2 inches or 2,000 miles or more. But there are limits to what one spirit entity can do. It cannot be seen by those in the physical realm. Erik explains.
I was lying in bed in intensive care, and there at the foot of my bed were 4 people that I knew. A friend of mine from New York, my dad, who was in a wheelchair. He's always been in a wheelchair. My mother, and a friend of the family who was dating my mother. And they were looking at me, but they had really sad faces on, and my mother was crying. So I got out of the bed and walked towards them. And I was maybe 3-4 inches away, 5 inches away from them. And they didn't see me. They just kept looking through me. They were looking past me. And I turned around and I saw what they were looking at.
Erik's spirit was no longer in his body. Shocked at the eerie sight, Erik instinctively understood that the only way he would ever leave the intensive care unit alive was by re-entering his physical self.
I think what it did for me at the moment was I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like seeing myself like that. And I didn't want to be there. So I said, I'm getting out of here. And the next morning, I was taken out of intensive care.
Reflecting back on the incident, Erik feels he had help in making the decision to return to his body.
I think maybe I was grabbed by my guardian angel and was given a choice if I wanted to stay, not get back in the body. But I choose to get out of there.
Larry also feels Erik's recovery was divinely achieved.
I would have to say that it was a miracle, and that an intervening force greater than human beings, and in my lay opinion, that's God.
Erik has never again had another out-of-body experience, but the one incident was enough to give him a new perspective on celestial beings and the afterlife.
I hope that when, after my death, that I get to be a guardian angel to some youngster. Oh yeah, I believe in guardian angels.
And there are millions of others, like Erik, who have experienced journeys outside the housing we call the human body. Could you be one of them? These supernatural sojourns have often been compared to hyper-real dreams. Is it possible, as the Azandi tribe believe, that each night our nocturnal imaginings are in fact ethereal out-of-body adventures? It's something to sleep on. It's often been said that a man's best friend is his dog, and for good reason. The unconditional love these companions freely give is a rare gift. But there's another attribute which some say these animals possess. We know a dog can be taught to heal, but is it conceivable that a dog can heal his ailing master? They bring smiles to our faces with nothing more than a gesture or a look. They can be loyal and faithful beyond belief. At times, they almost seem human. Animals, what is it about them that can instantaneously capture hearts and help us forget about the stresses of everyday life? Throughout history, man has had a variety of relationships with the four- and two-legged creatures with whom he shares the planet. But today, there is evidence of a new kind of connection between man and beast, a bond which is resulting in the breaking down of walls that were once thought to be insurmountable.
Animals tend to create an environment where people do tend to have an emotional response.
They communicate with these children very, very well.
I would say it would be like a miraculous change. This whole story is a miracle.
It's just wonderful, wonderful for me.
Ken Perlis, founder of Companion Animals Meeting People, is proving every day that animals have the innate ability to foster healing.
Animals are a very wonderful form of therapy because they're totally unconditionally loving and non-judgmental. People feel safe and will do things in the presence of an animal that they may not do in a traditional therapeutic setting.
At Northridge Hospital in Southern California, Irene Jarrett has also discovered the benefits of animal-assisted therapy.
A lot of times we take patients who aren't doing a lot of responding in a more structured therapeutic environment and put them in pet therapy.
We work with stroke patients, head trauma, spinal cord injured, communication disorders, speech disorders. I've worked with autistic children, retarded adults, Down syndrome kids.
Ken is helped in his efforts by 19 animals, ranging from dogs to a cat, rabbits, guinea pigs, even chinchillas.
Animals tend to elicit from people an emotional response like babies and children do, if you like them. And we put people in the group that like animals. And essentially what happens is the animals, they're not discriminatory in terms of disability. They don't react to the patients any different than what they would normally react to. As well as these are individuals who, the majority of them, have been independent, and all of a sudden they become dependent. And the animal is dependent on them, so in essence it puts them in a position where they're responsible and they're a caretaker and makes them feel good.
Irene, the coordinator of communications therapy at the hospital, invited Ken and his animals to participate with her group after seeing the profound effect animal therapy had on Phyllis Goldman, Irene's mother.
My mom's accident was really a freak type of accident. She worked in a pediatrician's office and she was going to drop off some of the statements to the bank, which was very close to the office.
I was going to the bank that was in Westchester.
She stepped into the crosswalk, the light changed, and the man who was driving either misjudged or didn't see her.
And the man hit me in the car.
Phyllis underwent a 9.5-hour surgery, followed by an extended stay at the hospital, where she remained in a vegetative state.
I think with my mom, she was not real responsive for a long time after her brain injury, which was not unusual. And when the team asked us, do you think your mom would be responsive to pet therapy? We all said no. We had animals in our house, but my mom was not the person who was involved with the animals.
But eventually, hoping to speed Phyllis's recovery, Irene and her family opted to try pet therapy.
When I came to the hospital, the little dogs seemed to be around a lot, a lot. And so we had a really good time together.
The first thing they saw in pet therapy where she began to respond is she actually took this rabbit called Marshmallow and she brought the rabbit up to her face and kissed it. We had projected that she wouldn't be responsive and that she wouldn't like the animals, but it was actually the opposite. It brought out that maternal aspect of her and that nurturing, and she was very responsive and she enjoyed it.
Everybody in there who doesn't even care for animals, if they have that injury, seem to be responsive to it. It's amazing.
Animals' health is required because you feel it so much strongly.
The strong connection is also felt here at an Easter Seals daycare class for children with special needs.
Easter Seals designed an entire program based on special needs children, and it gets really hard week after week after week to have new and exciting things for these children. Ken comes and the whole world opens up.
These are children in many instances that don't respond to many things at all. The animals, we find that it brings people out of their shells. There's an opportunity to involuntarily, if you will, do things almost naturally.
We have a little boy that just loves the dogs, and I told the mom that he loved the dogs, and she knew, and she wanted to run out and get him a dog right away because he responded so well to the dog.
We do see significant changes in behavior and activity levels and attentiveness from the kids when the animals are around. It opens up a whole new realm for them.
To date, hundreds of individuals have been touched, licked, or cajoled by these furry animal healers. But these comforting creatures weren't always the objects of affection. Ironically, all of the animals Ken uses were, at one time, victims of either abandonment or unthinkable abuse at the hands of previous owners.
Each animal has had its own little saga, so I get to help the animal world by rescuing and rehabilitating and training these animals to be social with people and with each other, and then take them out for visits.
One of Ken's most memorable successes with animal-assisted therapy involved a young man named Kevin, who was confined to a wheelchair and did not speak.
He had a board on his wheelchair called a lap board, and it had key phrases and pictures so that he could communicate whether he needed to go to the bathroom or if he was hungry or if he needed a fork or a napkin or a towel.
But then Ken and a dog called Katie visited a special school attended by Kevin.
And while we were getting everybody set up in a schoolyard, somehow Kevin got a hold of one of the dog's leashes and wheeled himself away, maybe 10, 15, 20 yards away. And all of a sudden I saw Katie doing her tricks, doing everything in her repertoire in front of Kevin. And Kevin was making guttural sounds and some words, and Katie was just trying to please him. And that was what prompted him to start talking. I would like to see things like animals in every facility as resident pets. whether it be dogs, rabbits, guinea pigs, fish tanks, you know, and aquariums, those kinds of things are all very soothing and really good for the quality of life of people.
I just think that it is so needy that they have the animals there.
Animals have an ability to communicate with each other in ways that we can't hear or see. And I think that people also have these God-given talents. I think that learning language has hindered us in really communicating from our hearts.
The mind has been called God's most miraculous creation, and nowhere is that description more fitting than in this story. When a group of mentally disabled people exhibit special gifts and talents, it can only be described as extraordinary. Gabe is mentally retarded. He cannot balance a checkbook, but curiously, he can compute the cube root of an 8-figure number in only seconds. Nadia is a blind woman whose IQ is under 50. She is able to sing the score of an entire musical after hearing it just once. Albert's mental handicap has left him without verbal skills, yet he is able to communicate visually through the perfectly symmetrical drawings he creates without the benefit of a ruler or any other measuring device. Each of these individuals is affected by a rare condition known as Savant Syndrome, which paradoxically enables them to have isolated genius-level abilities in coexistence with their mental disabilities. Savant, from the French, means learned or scholarly, and much like the character portrayed by Dustin Hoffman in the film Rain Man, savants can exhibit skills which border on the impossible. In the past, such impressive talents were usually only recognized in medical journals. But today, there exists a forum in which savants can develop and showcase their unique gifts. Hope University in Anaheim, California, is a fine arts college for people who are mentally challenged. Several savants attend this school, where they hone their talents and learn to cope with life's difficulties through the different artistic disciplines they study.
Once you get in there and get them hooked into what they like to do and what they enjoy doing, then you can teach them other things using the arts. It's like the window to their world.
Executive Director George Gilliam explains how the curriculum benefits autistic students.
Like I said, with autism, they would rather work strictly within a rigid frame, and they would rather work by themselves. So my main goal is to get them to interact.
When autistic student Joaquin Dixon first came to Hope, he interacted only with his tape recorder and the music it played. But ultimately, using music, his instructors were able to draw him out. We asked Joaquin who his favorite musicians were.
Buddy Holly from Lubbock, Texas. All of his records went gold from 53 to 58 before his death in 59. And Lionel Richie, he's the one that wrote and recorded All Night Long. It was a real big seller in '83.
Like his idols, Joaquin also sings. He's the lead vocalist for the school's musical group, the High Hopes.
There is room in this world for everyone. Imagine us all together. The world is full of many colors. Peace and harmony forever.
Joaquin and the band write their own songs, arrange their own music, and appear professionally in venues across the United States. And though their travels have afforded them undreamed of opportunities, it is the sense of self that members get from performing, which is their greatest reward.
They're talented and they have something to give to society. And the best way to do that is to get them out in front of society and have them recognized for their talents. Then people aren't afraid so much, oh, this person's different. We're all afraid of being different, you know, we want to fit in. Well, this is a way for them to fit in.
Classes in drama, dance, and art also help students discover they can contribute to society. In fact, drawings, watercolors, and other student art have so impressed art aficionados that many of the works have been purchased and are now hanging in private collections. Needless to say, the work being done at Hope University is truly incredible. So much so that at times instructors have to remind themselves their pupils aren't just ordinary students.
Sometimes as a teacher you get so enthusiastic with them, with their ability to do some things that you forget, oh, you're right, you know, let me slow down for a minute. Because once they have it, it's not a problem. Then when they get it, it's like, oh, this is all it is. And it's like, then I can't stop them.
The riddle of Savant Syndrome is still a medical mystery, but some believe the key lies in the capacity savants have to memorize.
Memory is enormous. So they could go on a trip and they could come back and they could write down everything they did on the trip, including the man across the street that happened to walk by and what he was wearing and what time of day it was. Just like a diary every hour of the day, what was happening. And of course we want to study the memory of these savants, because what could we do in a regular school system if we could tap into how they memorize so quickly? Maybe there's a way of teaching that or adapting it to education.
But in the meantime, until science discovers the secrets of the savant mind, we can learn from them what George Gilliam has.
My opinion of what people can and can't do now has changed, because I find that if you put forth the effort, you can do anything. The students have taught me, and they teach everybody, that, you know, it's just a matter of sometimes sheer will to want to be, or to want to achieve, or to want to accomplish something. You can do it. And that's why they wrote that song. They said, yes, we can. And that's the point, that you can do anything.
You know what I'm saying? I, you, we, yes, we can. You got the system. I, you, we, yes, we can. I, you, we, yes, we can. I, you, we, yes, we can.
If these amazing people can overcome the obstacles they face in life, then maybe, with a bit of effort, we can too.
If you've experienced a miracle, let us know. Write Miracles, P.O. Box 4190, Hollywood, California, 90078.
Although they are rare, we've seen that miracles can happen. Or do they occur more often than we think? Could our concern for the more ordinary things in life cause the miraculous to go unnoticed? Just think, right now, somewhere in the world, a miracle is happening. Who knows? It might just be the one you've been looking for. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lee Majors.